Hey Greyhounds fans, thank you for listening to the Hounds Huddle podcast on Moraviansports.com, the Greyhound Sports Network, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am LJ Smith, Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Moravian University, and on this episode, I sat down with women's soccer coach Jeff Ykoruk, learning about his playing days during college, through his coaching career, to finishing his 8th season as the head coach of the Greyhounds women's soccer program. So let's get started and meet our guest, head coach Jeff Ykoruk. Thank you again for joining us on the Hounds Huddle podcast, the official podcast of Moravian University Greyhounds Athletics. I'm LJ Smith. Alongside me this episode is head women's soccer coach Jeff Ykoruk. Thank you for joining me today, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
We'll kind of give you a rundown of the show quick. We're going to talk about how you first got started with the sport of soccer, all the way up to high school and college days as a student athlete, and then go through your coaching tenure all the way leading up to you being the head coach of the Moravian women's soccer squad. So let's wait no further. We'll get things going. And let's first talk about, when did you first start playing soccer, kicking a soccer ball around? What was that like?
Probably was around 7, playing in like a local rec league. I remember, not doing a whole lot in the backyard, just going out and my parents signed me up for community soccer. I played, had some fun with it, but really didn't fall in love with it right away. And then the second year I went out and did the same level. I just found more success with it. And, I didn't do any training on my own. It just came naturally to me. And so my parents were thinking about, okay, let's take it to the next level, sign up for a travel program. And I went and did that and, got involved with the club itself and met great people, had great coaching staff and parent coaches that didn't really know the sport of soccer. So the game kind of taught ourselves. And I had, a coach that was really trying to establish us and learn more about the sport. He didn't play that sport. So I was fortunate to have good people surrounding me. And the progression of that time period was probably right when the year-round soccer commitment at the club level started, premier level club teams. So when I was a senior in high school, was able to play for like a premier level team that was state runner-up and got ourselves into regionals. But way different landscape now than it was back then as far as the recruiting aspect of things. And we traveled down south for a lot of showcases. High school all-star games were places where you got recruited at. We didn't have the every weekend in a row for 4 or 5 weekends of college coaches coming in. So way different landscape.
Was that the only sport you played growing up? Did you just full-fledged soccer? Did you play anything else?
No, I played baseball. My dad was a huge baseball fan, and I played baseball. I really enjoyed baseball to the point where when I played against my classmates, but once it got to playing against other areas and communities, it just wasn't as fun. I just enjoyed playing against people I see in school every day. So when I got to middle school, I played basketball and ran track, and then in high school played a little basketball, and then I did run track to stay in shape for soccer. But soccer was my love. So senior year when I was playing basketball, at that point these showcases were taking place were during the holiday time period down in Florida, and I made full commitment to saying I'm just going to be soccer track and put all my energy into that, which was helpful because I was able to stay fit and actually increase my speed as well. So
that's awesome. Multi-sport athlete in high school, definitely something. Talking to some coaches, they look for to keep them in shape and just not burn out in that one sport.
Yeah, and I was fortunate to have a track coach that was knowledgeable about what he was doing, but also understood, listen, he's playing soccer as well. And we see that now at the club level. When I train club players, some of their high school track coaches don't realize how much they're doing with premier level soccer. And hey, they're doing 4 events, twice a week, and then they're going to 4 practices, 3 practices, and then end up getting hurt. So it's important to have good coaches that can understand that balance of being a multi-sport athlete.
Now, you talk about playing club and in high school. Were you recruited pretty heavily in high school? Like, what was that experience like for you on the student athlete side of things?
It was challenging because it was, you were limited to the events that you were at. You would have to perform really well at those events. So all southeastern PA. So I was, first team all suburban in my conference, and then I made what they call the Philly Alzheimer's game, which was the Catholic League versus the public, and interact with the private schools versus suburban. So I made that all suburban team. So I was able to get in front of coaches at those 2 events, which was helpful. And in my club team, having the success they did, but yet you had to go promote yourself even more by writing letters. So you would write a letter, you would send a VHS tape out to them, and and hope to get a letter back or a phone call back. But it's a different landscape. So I was recruited by different levels, but fell in love with the Division III atmosphere. I think my parents were comfortable with me being in a school that the ratio of the class was 14-1, and I'm not walking into a lecture hall of 200, or I'd turn around and walk right back out. I needed that interaction with my professors, but I also needed a coach that wasn't viewing me as a number. So during that process, it was important for me to have that coach that was going to guide me and get to me where I needed to be. And some of the schools, I just felt like they just looked at me as a number. It was, some little higher level, but I didn't have that personal interaction. So coach was, we're still connected to this day. And, meeting with him, I knew he cared about me, off the field as well.
So that shaping your decision, where did you end up going and being a student athlete at?
Yeah, I went up going upstate New York to Elmira College. All my focus was going on down south. I got a lot of the schools down south were looking at me because we were going to showcases down in that region. So I looked at schools and got recruited by some southern schools. Went up to upstate New York on a trip. Coach came down to do a home visit. He was going to go to my high school that day, but we got a snowstorm. So he even came down in a snowstorm, came to my house, paid a visit. My parents said, "You owe him a trip back up." I went back up and just fell in love with the upstate New York. The winters are long there, but it was a good experience. And then obviously Coach, made a decision to go to another institution and to be able to finish my career with him at Eastern University, which was a pleasant experience for me. Playing for him again and with a new set of guys was a fun experience. So I've had the fortune of really gaining a lot of relationships, from the club level, high school level, and the collegiate level. And I just spoke to a couple of people about that the other day, is the fact that, people in my wedding party represented high school soccer, club soccer, and college soccer. So it's kind of neat.
Coming full circle, for sure. So you make the trip from Elmira to Eastern. You're still playing under the same head coach. Was it difficult for you to make that transition for that final year?
No, I think, being closer to home,
Yeah,
that helps a lot. And, the Eastern, being a Christian school was probably the biggest change for me, that dynamic, but it was in a positive way. I mean, I met so many caring people on that campus, and, the fulfilling expectation of playing and knowing that, your career is coming to an end, like, you're more focused on just appreciating every day and every moment. Your surroundings are there, but it's just so focused because it's 2.5 months. It goes by quickly. And so we had, such great practices. We had a really good team that we were bonded together. And like I said, it was, that transition was easier because it was closer to home. But also at the same time, it was just, you're hyper-focused on getting every ounce of of experience because your time is coming to an end. So it was pretty easy transition.
Following your final season as a student athlete, what was your next move after graduation?
I knew I wanted to coach. Throughout the summers of my collegiate career, I would work for Middle State Soccer Camp. I'd work 7 weeks, travel around, picking up cones for different Division I, II, and III coaches and learning, different styles. Coaches that I worked for a week that I couldn't stand, their personality, and coaches I was like, oh, that's who I want to be like. So that was my experience. And so when I got out, I was already involved, club level, soccer training and getting my license, and knew that was the path I wanted to get involved in, and was fortunate enough to get connected at Ursinus on the men's side as an assistant, right after finishing my playing career, which was meant to be. It was awesome. So that was quite lucky to have that.
So you go to Ursinus as an assistant, and then you're named the head coach of the women's soccer team. You're there. You spent 9 years there. So what was that? You finally get you crack into the head coaching realm. Mm-hmm. How many different things did you take from all your mentors, learning your do's and don'ts? What really helped shape your coaching philosophy? Because you're learning a lot in your first season or two as a new head coach.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a lot. A lot came from the foundation that was given to me by my college coach, Mark Wagner, and taking his philosophy and ideas tactically, but also the biggest thing is the culture. Him developing a culture in a program, how important it was. And when I was involved with him at Elmira, he was invested into making sure the culture was strong. So if players weren't abiding by that, he removed those players. He made sure he knew that you have to be, on par with what we're doing off the field as well. So you have that combination of working with other coaches in the summer. You have, that awesome experience that I had with Coach Mark Wagner, and like paved that way for me to learn more about the game tactically. But his sessions were already, it would never be the same drill we would go through. We'd always have different themes. So I got a lot from him, and then piecing together from being around other coaches. I also did a lot of stuff in the Olympic development program when that was really the highest level of youth soccer, where the best players in the state were playing for Eastern Penn and New Jersey, and working with some of the great coaches in Eastern Pennsylvania, and under being an assistant at that level with some collegiate coaches, some coaches that had experience with the national team. So it's blending all those things together, and that's it's an appetite for development as a coach, and you just take bits and pieces from other coaches and experiences you have, and you blend it into your own. So when I was there on the men's side for 1 year, and then got approached to say, hey, listen, we were serious about you being a candidate for the women's job. I took that opportunity and I knew it wasn't at that time, and my whole experience it was a part-time position at Ursinus. So I took advantage of that right away, and I was still able to wear different hats as well. I still did club, I did personal training, I did ODP. So I was wearing a lot of different hats, but I was establishing myself as a coach at a young age, which was at a head coach, which was wonderful. So
very valuable.
Yes,
yeah,
totally.
So your time leading the Bears, you posted an 85, 62, and 15 record from 2003 to 2012. You made 6 appearances in the Centennial Conference playoffs, including a finals appearance in 2007 and the ECAC Division III tournament in 2005. So those are just a couple of things I can rattle off about your experience there, but you also hold the record for the most wins in the regular season, conference, and playoff games in Ursinus program history. You did all this in your first head coaching stop. Reflecting back on that, did you notice what kind of magnitude you were leaving on that program?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a great experience down there. I think that to have a quality academic school in a nice area with strong pre-med program, the ability to recruit there, it wasn't overly challenging, but at the same time we didn't have a history of success, so we had to change that. And I think the understanding with my first couple of years was the fact that we're going to play within a certain system. We played Dutch 4-2-3-1, and we were going to be really good at it. We happen to have personnel to do that. I think at the time when I took over, I'm like, we have pieces, and then from that point on, I think it caught on fire. And I think being around the sport, like I said, as much as I am off the field, that time spent with the club, ODP, you're just fine tuning your craft. So and that conference is very competitive on the women's side. So it was constantly knowing that every day, you have to win every conference game. You lose 1 or 2, you could be out. I took that with me here when I got to Moravian, of knowing that I was in a conference that was so competitive that I want to keep that competitive mindset moving into Moravian switch here. So
you go from being the head coach of the Ursinus program, a women's head coach for 9 years, and then you make the transition back to Eastern. And you're a men's assistant coach for 2 years. What was that jump transition in your career?
Yeah, that was the decision to be made. Put 9 years at a school that at the time their mindset wasn't to have a full-time role. And Coach Wagner was the one that sat me down and says, you're wearing 4 different hats. You got to think about moving forward and spending less time on a soccer field and maybe get married and have a family one day. So I always remember that conversation where it took place. With me, and I said, at that point, why don't I build up? I have experience on the women's side. Let's open up an opportunity to get some experience, more experience on the men's side. So then my resume could fit opportunities on either end of it. So going and working with him and being on the sideline of the men's side was a great experience. I played at Eastern. I always loved the philosophy that he brought into that program, especially at Eastern as well. So it was an easy transition. It was quite nice for 2 falls not to have as much stress from August to November. It's a different role, but learned a lot from him and how to deal with the male personality and the differences between coaching both the male and the female athlete.
You mentioned it a little bit. You were a student athlete for your former coach, Coach Wagner, and now you're on the sidelines with him. What was that experience like? Because talking to a couple friends of mine who are now coaches on different coaching staffs who coach with their former coach, they realize how frustrated the coach was, why they were frustrated with them in certain aspects. What was that like for you, finally being on the sideline and being kind of even with Coach Wagner?
It was awesome. I think that, obviously being a head coach, the stress of game day and what brings. So we have that common knowledge and sense. And I'd put 9 years in a college program, so I felt like at that time, I wasn't coming in to be the Batman. I was going to be the Robin. I was okay with it. I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to just do my role and do it well. And he actually allowed me to do a lot of training and work with the players and and system-related stuff that was different, on the men's side than the women's side. But it was just so much fun to sit down and spend all that time together talking soccer.
Yeah.
It's just there's no better feeling. And the staff that was there, was some staff was there when I was playing as well, was still remaining. So just to sit in a room with those guys and they understood that I went through 9 years of coaching and just sharing the knowledge and bouncing ideas off each other was really a lot of fun. And it makes you a better coach every moment you're in there every day. So that was what I take away from that experience is like just, developing into when I was going to take over another program, hitting the restart button and say, okay, there's some things I want to change. These are things I want to input. These are things I want to keep the same. And just sharing those ideas with soccer-minded people and that are good people was a fun time.
Now, throughout all of these experiences you've had, you also, outside of the college ranks, you also were the founder and director of Right Path Soccer. So tell me a little bit about what that is and how you got that up and running.
Yeah, I think the beauty of the club world is the fact that you get to develop young athletes. Some of the negative pieces of the club world is sometimes you have to deal with playing time issues, parents not being happy. And so I wanted to combine the best of both worlds, work with a young player, develop them, but to avoid that madness of youth sports, what they are now, which is unfortunate. But so it was an opportunity to develop into not only just individual players, small group players, but, running camps, dictating my own schedule, which was nice to have that opportunity. And it was something that I developed, and like shortly after that, led me to opening up my application and coming here to Moravian. So it wasn't a long-term project that I had up and running. It was doing well, and then Moravian then became my main priorities up here in Bethlehem. So
You also, on top of that, you've been involved with club programs as well over the past 12 years in the Philadelphia area. So being a part of those programs, getting to see top-tier student athletes come through, does that help you recruit in certain ways as well? Because you're getting to develop these student athletes and kids coming out of high school. Have you worked with any younger groups, or has it primarily been high school aged?
I've done, I've been on the high school age boys side and on the girls side as well. I've worked with youth level players in more of an academy setting,
Okay.
where your small group academy stuff. So that that transition in the club area in Eastern Pennsylvania, where it's highly competitive, South Jersey is highly competitive. Networking is massive. So, from the recruiting standpoint, it's not only about just working with that age group. It's about knowing the club coaches and the director of coaches of those clubs that that they want to help your program. So when they have a player that's not getting recruited at a high level or it's kind of behind the scenes, or under the radar, you get that email from them, and it's just that's massive to have those eyes out there helping you. So, but the high school level, obviously, for when I was at Ursinus, was the boys program that I directed there and ran was geared because when we were in season, I needed that age group to be in season in high school.
Okay.
And as soon as November hit, they were done. I was done, and we would go train. And I was able to do that with a couple of my good friends that played at Eastern. We were all system-related players that played for Coach Mark. So we'd get together on a turf field with 3 or 4 age groups and teams, and we'd separate by positions. And we ended up attracting a lot of good players based on the fact that we were doing system-related stuff and having success with that. And there was no politics involved. A lot of the club stuff's politics here and there. It was 4 college coaches just hanging out on Tuesday, Thursdays on a turf field for 3 hours. And it's really, when you remove all that nonsense from it, it's easy to have success. And when you take away the politics away from it, remove that kind of stuff, and just purely focus on player development, and which is massive, and it goes a long way. And some of those players, went to the right fit of schools. We weren't trying to push our players to a higher level and just to promote our club.
Yeah.
We were able to find the right fit for those players as well. And then now you're connecting with other college coaches on that end of things. So you're competing against them sometimes on the sideline on a college level, but then you're helping push players that way. So that's what I'm doing right now with my 04 LVU team, and last year with 02 as well. Is if you want to go to Scranton, play Scranton, go ahead. That's the best fit for you. I want the best thing for you. So it's been a fun experience, but it's opened my eyes too. As much as we can in the club world is, when you go recruit seeing players play multiple times, because there's certain times that with my club team, certain days that the players do really well, and
Yeah.
then that latter part of the week they're just not as consistent. So it really shows that you have to go out to these showcases and watch these kids play 4 to 5 times to make sure that that one time you saw them wasn't their peak.
Yeah.
That they're, and then the next time you saw them, they could be the valley. So it opened my eyes on that end as well.
Are you looking to get your hands on Moravian University Greyhounds gear? Head over to moraviansports.com and click the link Sideline Store under the tab Fan Zone to find our Moravian apparel store. Each month, there is a promotion that offers a discount to all things Greyhounds, from hats, hoodies, shirts, and more. Head to the Moravian Athletics Sideline Store today, powered by BSN Sports. So you finish up at Eastern, and you get the opportunity to come here. What was going through your mind as you're about to go from, you were a head coach to an assistant back to a head coach? You're about to take that next step and reestablish yourself as a head coach.
Yeah, it's kind of just taking that time period of saying, okay, I want to, I look myself in the mirror, evaluate myself as a coach. This is what I want to take with me that I had success with. These are things I want to change. This is what I've learned, and then come up into a new environment. And I think probably for me, the soccer end thing wasn't as concerning. I got hired maybe 2 weeks before preseason, so I felt even that first full year I was getting to know faces on campus. I met some of my players for the first time in preseason.
Yeah.
But my biggest concern, I think, was, what kind of culture do we have off the field? If I want to focus on developing these players and soccer players, am I going to be spending more time disciplining people or having more study halls and then having that time taken away from me to focus purely on soccer? So when I learned, I remember Mary Beth, I asked her about that, and she said it's a wonderful group. They get along well, they work hard, they get good grades. So that was relieving for me to have that, and so purely focus on that soccer aspect of it then.
That definitely makes your job easier, being able to focus on the technical work for your squad. But also, we've touched upon culture a couple times throughout the episode so far. That's something that I feel almost every coach I've talked to, interviewed, always talks about the culture of their program and how that's kind of their main priority. But it always seems, since being around you, I've seen you since 2015, really, since I've started covering sports with Mark in the athletic communications office, there's always been that buy-in, without a doubt, within your group. So it takes time to develop that, but it's also, I feel like, you're able to connect with your squad on a personal level. Do you feel that the same way too? Have you had that experience with coaches in the past?
Yeah, I think, I think when you, as much as you travel around the sport and you play in the fall and then you get in the club level and you see, why are these programs having success? It's one of those things where you want to follow those teams and pay attention to what they're doing, or why are these teams not doing well? Mm-hmm. And I think, sideline demeanor and professionalism on the sideline, and then understanding what guided our program. So when I played for Coach Mark, and we played for 2 or 3 years of being a top 25 team, like talent gets you so far, but the locker room is massive as well. So seeing that end of things and, knowing how to connect with players and understand that, the main goal is to provide a positive atmosphere for training and development. You spend so much time together. So I think you just, you focus and when you're as a coach and looking at successful teams, club teams, college teams, and what makes them successful and reinforcing those things. And then when you go experience playing against other teams that aren't strong cultured, and we end up, they don't beat us, we end up beating them. And I said, well, then why would you ever want to change? Because it doesn't work, right? Yeah. And I think it's the experiences, we take our captains or leadership council to the Hall of Fame banquet. And I said, listen to the speeches of the Hall of Famers. None of them talk about the home run, the game-winning goal, the big save. They all talk about the we memories as a team. And it's the same thing at the alumni game. Like, no one's talking about after the game, I was all conference, this and that. They talked about the fun memories. So we work to create those memories. So when we're in overtime, we're just saying, hey, listen, like, we put that ball in the back of net. There's a dog pile there. You'll have that memory forever. Yeah. And that's why you work hard for that. The individual statistical stuff goes away, but those memories are always going to be there. So, and that's what my college coach, and even in high school and even in club, I've had that mentality around my life the whole time. So and you have so many great memories from that. So that's why not continue it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's such a unique thing, as I've been talking to coaches and reflecting on just the past season, but also the past couple of years, with which what we'll get to shortly is with a pandemic hitting. You don't realize how fortunate those moments were. And now playing a full season this past year, I feel like everyone was they were made aware of the magnitude of those moments.
Absolutely. As you appreciate it so much more. And, looking back on that, you build your program through, staple classes that you bring in higher numbers or those players. And that's what we were that year. And we had that senior class that was going to lead us to an opportunity to play maybe for a semifinal or host a semifinal or get to a final. And then to know the feeling of making a phone call, calling the captain saying, hey, we're done, we're shut down, we're not playing. And then when we got to school, hey, there's 6 weeks, not going to train, and it's hard. And then we got cut short of that right before holiday break for Thanksgiving. And you come back and you're in a mask, they're in a mask, there's no parents on senior day. I think you jump out of that, and it's a constant reminder. And there's multiple times I reminded the players at a certain point, like, hey, you might be tired after the 4th day of preseason, but at least you have this opportunity. Think about your seniors from last year. We used that multiple times, and I think our players really respected that and looked at that and said, we're given an opportunity that someone else wasn't after 3 or 4 years of training and lifting. That was tough. So, to be able to rebound the way we did this year on an odd number year, meaning 2019, we're always playing those 4 really competitive programs away.
Yeah.
Here you have a big senior class. We're going to have all those teams at home. We didn't even get that opportunity.
Yeah.
So then we rebound with a really young program now, and then with great leadership from our older players. But 22 of the 32 were freshmen and sophomores, never did this before. And to get to the conference playoffs in that odd year where you're playing all those high-level teams away, it was just a really good accomplishment. And it's all because of the hard work that the players put in and how close they are. The culture is really strong, and I think that gets us to that next level to get those results.
So we alluded to it. There was a global pandemic that shut down your season, fall of 2020, and you're trying to make the most of the experience for that graduating class. How tough was it on you as a coach to kind of be there for them during such a confusing time?
Yeah, I mean, it's nobody thought or a couple of weeks and we'll be back at it or in that spring. So I didn't, at the initial time period of that spring of the pandemic hit, we didn't think about the fall. We thought we would be fine by the summer, and we're back at it. So as it continues to move forward, it got more severe with the cases, and you started to realize, okay, this could impact the fall.
Yeah.
And Landmark was one of the last conferences to make that decision, although everybody in their gut kind of knew, hey, this is what's going to happen. Those players were still training and in the summer to be ready to play if they needed to. So, obviously we did a lot, with Zooms. Our summer group families made some fun competitions within that. And, you try to do as much as you can to keep them in a positive mindset, but they're all smart young ladies, and they're processing things and they're keeping their fingers crossed, but they know it's not likely. So you just have to stay positive and be there for them and support them. Academically was, for us, one of the things too was, you're transitioning now into online learning, and, you can have players that were achieving at a high level in a normal setting but might struggle. So figuring out who those players are and spending more time with them to help them get through that academic piece, and then do as much as you can. We were down on the Betty Prince, and we would space out in a circle with chairs and take the mask off and just talk, make sure we're there for them. So we really did a lot of small group meetings and a lot of FaceTime with them, and, as much as we could. But, after that, the spring opportunity, gyms were shut down. There was 20 inches of snow on fields. So we knew coming back that we had an opportunity to play, but we weren't going to be at the highest level. So my mindset was that they're scrimmages. So we started all of our seniors every game, and we rotated players, and pretty much every half played the full roster because we didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring, if it was going to shut us down or not. So we didn't look at it to get results in the spring as much. We looked for it just to be an experience, a positive one.
Yeah, and I can imagine how difficult it must have been for that senior class, knowing like you want to give them the right experience because these may be the last time they put on a Greyhound uniform. And at least the capability of having scrimmages where you're not going toe to toe with your teammates on the other side of the field. You're facing other landmark conference opponents. It's just the pressure, that environment wasn't the same.
Yeah, I think, you take a look at a normal fall season, and then for us to be in a pandemic where the ultimate goal for us to get to, the most exciting part was going to be the blue versus gray soccer scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
So much was taken away from it that was our World Cup.
Yeah.
And so we didn't even get that. So I think emotionally it was really hard for them because at that point our fitness level was still coming off the summer training was at a pretty high level. So we knew that scrimmage would have been, that was their ultimate goal. But then to be turned around and say, okay, you're going to get a live match, there's referees there, uniforms, you get pregame music, like whatever it could be. Like that was, like I said, you appreciated every moment. But and then at the end of every game, it's just kind of like you looked at each other and hoped that we would be able to do that for 3 more times and then 2 more times. You didn't know if you would get to next week.
Next one.
So I think at the end of the games, it was an odd feeling as well. And not to have, on senior day, handing in the flowers, without their parents being there was, was hard. We wanted that. Other institutions didn't want that, but we wanted that. So I know it wasn't a Moravian thing. It was more just the hand we were dealt. But just make the most of it. A lot of our practices were geared around, getting ourselves organized to play, but also enjoying the time together, having some fun moments and fun, soccer-related games, enjoying that time to try to get, that was your 2 hours to get away from the pandemic. And then you practice it, and you're like, oh yeah,
yeah,
we're back in it, and you hear the news and all that. So, it was hard because that senior class really, deserved more than that, but it wasn't their fault. It wasn't the school's fault. It's just what happened.
So fast forward, you have a traditional fall start to your season. You're in for training camp, and to finally step on the sideline, coaching a meaningful game, a road game at Penn State Berks. What was going through your head, and how did you kind of prepare your squad for that moment?
Yeah, that was exciting. We had question marks, and we're young. How are they going to react to the pressure of a match that actually counts? Stats count. So it was a great feeling. To finally, when you're in a pandemic, you're like, what's it going to be like when you get back? You're finally at that moment, and to play a match where we knew, at that point, hey, we're playing, but what does October look like? And so we all had kind of questions like, are we going to get through this season? And, speaking with, the spring sports going through what they went through, there's a lot of contact tracing and players being out. We were a deep team anyway. We could sub a lot, but we wanted to make sure we had a lot of players to get involved in the game, especially the first 4 or 5, just in case there was tracing. We have 10 sophomores that live together down south. So we needed players to be ready to go in case their number got called, even if they were first-year players. So we did a lot of rotations and played our bench a lot. But it was a great feeling. It was a feeling of accomplishment. But at the same time, you still have that taste from last year of like, I wish that group of seniors would be out here experiencing this with us. So it was bittersweet in a way as well.
It was kind of an odd start to the year, too, with some postponements and weather playing a factor. You didn't play your first home game on John Mackovic Field until September 22nd, which is just bizarre. You hosted Ramapo, and you come out with a 3-0 victory. How excited were the ladies to finally step foot on their home turf, have that environment there with fans, music, the like?
That was awesome. I mean, it was electric in a sense. This is also the first year of them being in the locker room.
Yeah, the new locker rooms. Yeah.
So for them to be able, to get things going in that locker room and walk out to the music being on and have the lights come out, and have the support from the crowd. And we were able to score a pretty early goal when it took the pressure off, and we were able to score a second one before halftime. It was, you put the game out of reach a little bit, the early goal in the second half, and now as a coach, like, hey, not only are those girls playing an experience, pretty much the whole roster is going to get in this game.
Yeah.
So you walk away from it being like, that's as good as you're going to get against, an NJAC opponent who's quality, who's tough. So it's like, as a coach, we all want everybody to experience the same thing. We want them all to play to score the game-winning goal, but we know that's not always possible. So that night was as good as you're going to get, especially waiting all that time to be on that field. and which was tough because we also had 2 home night games. One got canceled and one got postponed because of the weather. So, you want to, after waiting all this time to play, you want home night games, and then when you lose them, it was hard for those players. But they bounced back and ended up being undefeated at home, which was great this season. So,
and you moved throughout the rest of the season. The team continued to battle. You were able to solidify a landmark conference playoff berth. How excited, how thrilled was this group? And you alluded to it earlier, knowing that it was the tough 4 road contests this year, and you were still able to solidify that playoff berth.
It was a great accomplishment for the players. I think knowing that is the tough year to get through, to see the look on their face of them accomplishing that. And we kind of knew too, as well as where we stood and gone into a lot of those last games of the years having to win or having to there's pressure to that. So we kind of knew based on results that we were in. So it was nice to enjoy that home game at the end where if you don't get the result, you're going home. Just for the players to realize that, and I think we also know that we had some hardship with losing Megan and Hannah, and that we were that 4 seed, but we were right there to be a 2 seed as well, not far off. So that plays with your emotions a little bit. But I always said that to them, you're a playoff team. That's hard to do, especially coming off of losing a big senior class, being a younger program, having the injuries. It was a really good accomplishment for us.
And you touched on the leadership of your senior class. You graduated 6 student athletes. Thinking back to their senior day, how emotional was it for them knowing that this was the last time that they're really going to step on John Mackovic Field? They have the pageantry this year. How grateful was this group?
Yeah, I think they were grateful. They're getting out on a senior day when we have seniors from last year on the hill. And so they wanted to perform not only for the current players themselves, but for them as well. So, and obviously that was unfortunate. Megan couldn't participate because she got injured prior to that. So there was emotion involved with that as well. So, but there was another day where we got the result and it was a shutout, and we got a lot of players in the game. So it was as good of a senior day as you're going to get. Nice weather.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lex had a goal in that game as well. A senior scoring a goal on her senior day was special. And but that was a fun time, and it was I think they really did appreciate it, because knowing what we went through last year.
Yeah, and Alexa Brown she scored the first goal and then assisted the second goal to Chelsea Meltzer. Alexa doing something very special for the program, but for the university as well, named an academic All-American. Talk to her stature a little bit, how she is as a student athlete, the whole package.
Yeah, I think Alexa, she's just so dialed in. It's, at all moments of the day, her focus is on being the best student or being the best athlete, but she's always dialed in. She's always processing things and execute things at a real high level, attention to small detail. That all matters to her. And, so certainly having her as one of our leaders alongside of Morgan, who's tremendous as well as a nursing major and on par with everything as well. Alexa having been named academic All-American, people that know her and knew her a couple of years ago are not surprised by that. Direct reflection of her hard work and, like I said, her attention to detail and everything. So, when that news came out, she got first team all conference, and then I was hoping for another award for her, whether it was all region or this award, and just be able to, to kind of know about it before I could tell her.
Yeah,
because it was exciting. So just to see her yesterday, even the look on her face, and it's so well deserving for her.
As we get near the end of the episode, the legacy of this senior class, enduring a pandemic, making an impact, all things combined, what has this group left behind as you look forward to the future of this program?
Yeah, I think you need, when you have a young group, you hope that your seniors and your upperclassmen are well-rounded. That they want to achieve in the classroom. They want to be hitting home runs socially with each other, and then having the opportunity to compete as an athlete together. And I think to have 6 of them and their personalities, which are all different, but at the end of the day, they're carrying people, and all of our younger players, there's no excuse now to say, all right, you didn't have a good enough role model to follow in their footsteps. So that was really big. So they can turn around and say, this is, if you want to be successful, take a look at these players here and take something from each one of them and package it together, and you're going to have an easier path here at Moravian. So that was great to have that senior role models from all of them, and they're all different personalities. And also to know during that time of when Megan and Hannah go down, how quickly things can change as an athlete, and so that extra motivation to win a game for them and the seniors was there from our younger players during the season and senior day.
So you conclude the season 6-5-4 overall and make an appearance in the Landmark Conference Tournament. So we look ahead to next season. What are you most looking forward to, knowing that you had such a youthful squad that now has some quality experience? What are you excited about looking to next year?
In a positive mindset, thinking the way that I think about this group is that they're going to really, really get after it in the off season. Take advantage of Coach Tom and Laurie and the workouts and do things on their own to fill the other half of the glass, like we keep telling them right now. Is you need to do stuff on your own with extra running and being around each other, playing pickup on your own if you can. If they approach it, our freshmen and sophomores and juniors the way that I think they will, I think that will be another level of athlete on that field next year with experience, stronger physically, stronger mentally, and I think that's going to just help elevate us. We do have a transfer coming in, and Megan, she'll be joining us, and she fits right in with our culture and mindset, so she's going to give us a boost. So she'll be here for spring semester. So excited to add another player to the group. I'm being positive about it, but I think this group will have a really good off season. And it does then get into the summertime, and that's important too, to stay together and stay fit during the summer. So if they do those things, good things will be happening for sure.
Jeff, thank you so much for spending time with me as we record another episode of the Hounds Huddle podcast. It's been a pleasure to learn more about your career as a student athlete, but also how you went about your tenure as coaching at Eastern, your sinus. I feel like I learn something new every time I have a conversation with a coach, and we've talked quite a bit off screen, and it's just been great to develop our relationship over the past couple of years. So
I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always enjoyable to talk with you. And this is a pretty cool setting as well. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Coach. What a pleasure it was to sit down and talk with head coach Jeff Ykoruk of the women's soccer program. I am so glad I had the time to learn about him and his playing career, his influences as a coach, and ultimately the success of the women's soccer program here at Moravian. Be sure to follow the women's soccer team on social media at Moravian Women's Soccer on Instagram and Moravian University Women's Soccer on Facebook. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and follow Moravian University Athletics as well. That is all I have for you on this episode of the Hounds Huddle podcast. Until next time, I'm LJ Smith, signing off.